the film, Miss Nicole Kidman. Woo, and how are you guys feeling after that ending? And that's where I want to start, actually, because when I saw this film for the first time...
Hi, everyone, by the way.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
When I saw this film for the first time, I almost wanted to go back and watch it again just to see how all the puzzle pieces fit together. So I'm curious...
So now we're going to make you do that.
Again, roll again. So I'm curious to know what your feelings were when you got to the end of the script the first time you read it.
I was emotionally really shattered by it because I think the scenes between the mother and the daughter were the ones that just grabbed me, and particularly that final image where I'm carrying my daughter on my back through the snow. The way that was written in the screenplay, and it was just so simple, but it really was powerful, and it just grabbed me. I then I did have to go back and kind of piece together all of it, because it is a very complicated sort of, the way in which it's constructed was complicated, and particularly in the first read. So that was important. So it'll be interesting. It's interesting to see whether people, all the little details and the things, because this is sparse in a lot of its dialogue, and even in its flashbacks, but there's so much information in those flashbacks. So.
Well, I've seen it now 3 times, and I can tell you it works every time. Now I've sort of started to put together the pieces of the puzzle. But something that always amazes me every time I watch it is your transformation. I mean, being Australian, I feel like you're familiar to me, even though I don't know you that
We're 2
well.
Aussies here, as you can tell.
So, but I'm always amazed at what you're able to do on screen, and I feel like you always choose roles that are quite unexpected. Is that a conscious choice for you?
It's not about...
Sorry.
It's not about trying to find...
There you go. Help me out. It's not about trying to find really different roles as much as it's about just exploring emotional territory that I've never been before. And I think not being trapped by my own physicality, like wanting to always say, I'm willing to morph into whatever is needed to play the role. But the most important thing for me is trying to find territory that I haven't been, that I'm interested in. And I'm also very interested in just examining human nature and the human psyche, and exploring different genres and supporting female directors. So there's a lot of things in there.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Karen, and she is one of the great female directors we had. And a study just came out saying in 2018 the percentage of female directors dipped a little bit. I'm curious from
what
you.
is it?
Yeah, I dipped a couple of percentage points. So even though the conversation about female directors is growing, now it doesn't yet lead to actionable change. So I'm curious, being someone that actively supports female directors and women in film, and every experience on a film is different, but do you notice any change when you have someone like Karen behind the lens, especially when you're doing something so emotional like this role?
I mean, the first thing I notice is the passion of the director. So if the director is completely consumed and passionate, they're my kind of director. And I think her determination and her desire and her desperation to get this film made, because it was very hard to get it financed and to get it made. I think that comes from a place of being a woman who hasn't had the same opportunities as a lot of her male colleagues. So there was that, and that's fantastic because it's palpable and it's there, and she's getting the chance, and to be able to help her have that chance, to be on the receiving end of her direction and the way in which she's, she had the whole film in her head. She had the music, which is really unusual music. She had that already sort of composed before we were even starting, which is a very unusual thing for a director to do. So there was a lot of situations in this in the making of this film where she was just like, just give me the chance. And to be able to help a director have a chance is a fantastic thing as an actor. And then to be given a character that's so complicated, and for her to take the nuances and give the time for me to be able to breathe and think and feel, and not cut away, and stay with Erin Bell in that regard. And it's got its own, obviously the film has its own rhythm, which is a particular rhythm that you either get used to or you don't. But she stayed with her style, and she's committed to that, and I'm very, very proud that she got it made and that I was able to be in it. So that's why I'm here talking to you today. And thank you for showing your support of not only me, but of women directors and supporting Karen like that. So thank you for buying a ticket.
Absolutely, because that's the question I often get, is how can everyone support female directors? And it's watch the films, buy the tickets, tell your friends. So playing Erin, I imagine, is a pretty a tough experience, being inside her mindset. Are you someone who can easily switch between yourself and a character?
I wouldn't say I'm really, no, that's not, I mean, I'm not technically proficient. I wish I was more machine-like, but I'm so, I've worked a long time now, and it's strange. The older I get, it's almost like it comes from a deeper place, and that's partly because of my experience and the things I've seen in the world and the things I've absorbed and the losses, and just my own life story has now coming out in different ways. But I'm certain roles I say to myself, okay, this is going to require an enormous amount of emotional discipline because I'm going to have to stay in it. And that's what I had to do with this role, because I couldn't very well step in and out of her, because then I felt like I was performing. And that's, that's a discipline. It's an artistic discipline which you either apply or you don't. But I have to do that, and I wish I could sort of, show up, turn it on, turn it off, go home. But it just doesn't work like that for me. But life doesn't work like that for me, I have to say. I'm very in it. I feel it. I'm just that. I'm a deeply sensitive person, so I absorb a lot, and that's just my journey, my path. So
It's what makes you a great actress, absorbing it from people. I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, then I'll open it up to all of you guys. But I'm curious to know, when you were filming, did you get to shoot the earlier parts first before the later Erin Bell? Because when you see it on screen, it is such an incredible transformation.
we actually shot the younger Erin at the end, because Karen, we had budgetary limitations, and also she then went, well, you want to know something, by doing all of the older Erin Bell first, we then were able to see what was going to be needed to show the love and the hope and the energy of the character. Because obviously this is a woman who's come to the end of her road, and she's so depleted, and she's so, made choices and sabotaged herself in particular ways. So there's that's what I find very, very sad about it, but it's also the truth of it. So therefore there is a person that started out in life very differently, and to be able to do that at the end was really interesting and actually incredibly helpful, because to then go, this is the love. And she was capable of falling in love, and she did have hope, and she did have a desire that her life was going to be different. She wanted to get out of certain situations, and she made quick choices and bad choices. But I think, there's an understanding why some of those choices were made.
What sounds like you really got to understand her. Do you need to understand the characters that you're playing or relate to them in some way?
I just need to feel it. And if I can feel it, and it may not even be a brain, like when my brain comprehends it. It's strange. It almost like it takes over your body, and then I can feel it, and then it's like you're almost surfing. It's a very strange experience, and it doesn't always happen. And when it does happen, I just go with it. And then there's other times when I'm like, okay, now I've got to really kind of try to analyze and understand and come at it through my brain. But if I can come at it through my body and my heart, it's so much easier. It sounds very strange, but that's how it happens.
It sounds so interesting to me, not being an actress and being someone like you that has worked in the business now since you were 14, you started acting, I think. Do you still get the same amount of joy in working and being on set?
I get a different, I think when I was younger, it's more like, where's this? The horizon is so off in the distance, and what's it going to be, and where am I going to go, and what are going to be? There's sort of this naive joy there. But as I've gotten older, it's become so much a part of who I am, and a necessity to my expression and also to, it's deeply emotional for me now. And it's not even about me in a lot of the choices and things. It's very much about trying to be a part of a group and participate and give to society in a particular way. So it comes from a far deeper place now than say when I was 14. Which I suppose is good, and partly that's to do with I've got to, you know, as you get older, and I've said this before, time is far more limited. So where you place your time and who you give your time to becomes far more important. So it's probably I'm grasping and finding places to go because I feel like, oh my gosh, there isn't, you know, endless time. It is finite. So.
Well, we have some time for audience questions, so yes, down the front.
Mrs. Kidman, I'm a huge admirer of your work. I thought you were very brave in this film today, a lot of courage. As a student of film, could you talk about working with Mr. Kubrick at all? What was that experience like?
The question is about working with Stanley Kubrick.
He was the great one. He's the professor, and I think when I started with him, for anyone here who doesn't know, I made a film with Stanley Kubrick called Eyes Wide Shut, and I was so in awe of him. But he said the most wonderful thing when we were just sitting in his house before we were filming and we were just rehearsing. He said, "Don't put me on a pedestal. Whatever you do, you mustn't put me on a creative pedestal because nothing will happen. We have to be able to throw out ideas. We have to be able to say things and try things, and it's got to feel like we're student filmmakers right now." And it was fantastic advice, and it's how I still approach everything. And the other thing he said was, if someone does say an idea, you're not allowed to say no. You have to wait 20 seconds. Which is kind of great, because so much of when you throw an idea out, if you suddenly get told no, you're like, oh, I'm not going to try again, or I'm not going to take a chance. But once you allow 20 seconds to go by or longer, you process that idea, and suddenly something that seems ridiculous, kind of, you go, maybe, which is fantastic. So I pass that on to you.
That's great. Up in the middle there.
Oh, Mrs. Kidman, I'm not denying that you've always been talented, but I've noticed that you've really shown through in your most recent filmography, where you've been doing a lot of you've shown yourself as a really versatile, multifaceted actor. Has that always been there, or did you want to prove that you were more than John Doe's ex-wife?
No, it was there in BMX Bandits.
Yeah. Having the same BMX band is one whole different.
Oh yeah, greatest movie ever made.
Yeah.
It's Australia's Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think I've always had the desire to just grow and learn. I still have that. I'm still always looking to stretch and grow and broaden myself. And you know, they would say to me when I was younger, you'll get better because of life. If you really live your life, then and you use that will help you. And that's probably what's happened to me, is that I'm now at a stage where I've experienced so much and seen so much and been around, obviously through my own family and friends, and then just even work that I do with the UN, and I've been able to absorb so much. So hopefully that still stays pure, and I still keep using that, and it keeps coming out, and it keeps growing and changing.
We've got a question over here. Oh, sorry.
One of your biggest fans. I so love your
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to know, are you planning to do any theater?
I did a play in London 2 years ago called Photograph 51, which was about a woman who was, she discovered DNA, and then she was not given the Nobel Prize, Watson and Crick were. So that was something I felt was an injustice, and I wanted to be involved in telling her story. So I did that. Theatre for me right now is very difficult because I have young children, and to not be there for their bedtimes, which I found out when I was doing the play, was very difficult. So they've asked me not to do theatre right now. And being devoted to them, I have said absolutely, you're far more important than any play. So later on, when they're a bit older and they're like, please, you don't have to put me to bed.
Question over here.
Me?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I'm such a fan. I'm such a huge fan. I'm like, like
Thank
the
you.
hours. I mean, I could just go on, so I'm not gonna waste anybody's time. But how long will you make up for that? Because like on your worst day, you could never look like that.
Oh no, I could.
And
The more tired and sick I got, the less makeup I needed.
I wanted to ask you, since you support female directors, like, do you support female screenwriters?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a process right now of where I've brought over a woman, a female writer who's writing a series for me right now at Amazon. I love finding women in all areas of this industry and supporting them. So screenwriters, crew members. I mean, this film, we were lucky in the sense that we had a female GP. And that's also very rare right now. No, ask another question.
Oh, I just wanted to tell. I just wrote a script for you years ago about a woman that gets her daughter in accidents on purpose so she can be doctors and get married. Like a dark comedy. Fun part of it. So just FYI.
Okay, thank you. I'll look out for it.
One in the middle here.
Who's your favorite country singer?
Who's your favorite country singer? That's a tough question. Really tough.
Definitely Mr. Irvin. And,
You're a little biased.
a little biased, but I also have enormous, I mean, I have to say, I've said this before, and he's always like, be quiet. People do not know that he plays pretty much every instrument, and he plays by ear. And that's something that he never tells anybody, but that's an incredible skill. He plays drums, he plays bass, he plays rhythm guitar, he plays harmonica, he plays slide guitar. I mean, the list goes on. So I'm always gonna say how and he's a human jukebox, not just country music. He could play anything. So if he was here right now, you would ask him and you would hum a tune and he'd be able to play it.
You should have invited him.
We've got one more question.
He's in home with the girls.
Yes.
You mentioned your physicality in the role. It just shows so much in exposition because there's, like you were saying, little dialogue. I was interested in how you approach that because just the walk in the very beginning from behind just tells so much about the character.
Thank you for noticing that. Yeah, that was interesting because the walk just came. It was not, as I say, my brain was not making these choices. It was very much from within. obviously because she's so wounded and she's dying, when you see me at the beginning, the walk is because of all the internal injuries. But that sort of shuffle, as Karen calls it, came out of me watching, and this is I've talked about this, is watching animal videos of coyotes actually that she sent me. And there was one that was sort of limping, and it was in Silver Lake, and it was taken by a drone around the reservoir, and I was watching her, and that's where the inspiration came from. That's how I absorbed it. So through that animal, that's how the walk came.
Is that with the image at the end too?
Yeah.
Yeah, powerful image. Well, we have to wrap it up there. Please stay in your seats as we have to get out to another thing. But welcome,
Thank
please
you
stay.
so much,
Nicole Kidman.
And thanks for loving film.
Thank God.